The life you're about to live is that of a eunuch in the Qing Dynasty. You were born during the Daowang reign of the Qing Dynasty into a dirt-poor farming family in When you were 8, locusts devoured every last crop in your village. Your father sat on the doorstep smoking all night. The next morning, he took you by the hand and walked 30 li to the county town. In town, there was a knife specialist known as Chen One Cut. Your father knelt and kowtowed 3 times, begging him to take you. Chen sighed and said the boy was too young. Your father replied, "Younger is better, at least he'll survive." The pain of that day would haunt you forever. Chen told you to endure this one cut, and a life of comfort awaited. You bit down on a strip of leather, nearly passing out from the agony. When you awoke, you realized you were no longer whole. After 3 months of healing, Chen sent you to Beijing and pulled strings to get you into the imperial household selection. You stood in a line with dozens of boys just like you, inspected one by eunuch supervisors. You were assigned to the Imperial Kitchen as a helper, waking before dawn every day to chop wood and stoke fires. Older eunuchs beat and cursed you at will. You didn't dare cry. Those who cried were thrown out, and being thrown out meant death. Palace rules were harder than iron. Walk without a sound, speak without meeting anyone's eyes, kneel and kowtow before your masters. You learned to read faces, to keep your head down before everyone. At 12, your chance came. An old eunuch in the kitchen noticed your quick hands and recommended you to serve a concubine. Consort Li lived in Yonghe Palace. She was mild-tempered and treated her servants decently. Consort Li taught you to read and write, and you learned fast. She told you that in this palace, an illiterate eunuch could only do rough labor for life. You studied desperately, practicing calligraphy by candlelight even when your fingers turned purple from cold. By 15, you could read, write, and keep accounts. Consort Li recommended you to the steward eunuch of the imperial household. From then on, you managed part of the palace procurement ledgers, and your status slowly rose. But palace politics ran deeper than anything outside. You quickly discovered the procurement books were riddled with fraud. A bushel of rice listed at 3 taels of silver when it was worth only 1. The difference was skimmed layer by layer by the eunuchs above. Your direct superior was a 4th-rank eunuch named Lu. He took your hand and said, "Kid, you need to understand how things work here. Pay your respects where they're due. Keep your mouth shut when you should." You said nothing, just nodded. From that day on, you became a link in the chain. By 20, you were already the head eunuch of Yonghe Palace. Though your official rank wasn't high, within these walls your word carried the most weight. Palace maids curtsied to you, and junior eunuchs called you master. Consort Li was later promoted to noble consort, and you rose with her. Once, someone from the Empress Dowager's circle asked you to handle a private matter. You handled it flawlessly, and the Empress Dowager remembered your name. At 25, you were transferred to serve under the Grand Steward of the imperial household. You began touching the true core of power. Tens of thousands of taels passed through your hands daily. Every matter in the palace, large or small, went through you. You began sending silver home. Your father wept when he received it, and wrote you a letter saying the whole village knew you'd made something of yourself in the palace. Reading it, you felt something you couldn't name. Made something of yourself? You looked down at your body and smiled bitterly. At 30, you pulled off something big. A prince had been embezzling funds meant for river dikes, and you had the proof in the ledgers. You quietly passed it to someone close to the emperor. The prince was stripped of his title. You earned no public praise, but the emperor took note of you. The emperor began using you for tasks that couldn't see the light of day, surveilling officials, gathering intelligence, delivering secret letters. You discovered that being a eunuch was actually the perfect cover. Nobody took you seriously, but you knew everything. At 35, you became a 2nd-rank eunuch of the Office of Respectful Service, one of the highest positions a eunuch could reach. In the entire Forbidden City, fewer than 5 eunuchs stood as your equal. But the greater your power, the more enemies you had. Someone filed a secret report claiming you had hoarded 100,000 taels of silver. The emperor didn't pursue it, but you could feel his gaze on you had changed. You began preparing fallbacks. You secretly bought several properties outside the palace, registered under other people's names. You also adopted your nephew from back home as a godson, brought him to Beijing, and funded his studies for the imperial examinations. The year you turned 40, everything changed. The old emperor died, and a new one took the throne. The young emperor's first order of business was purging eunuch power. You watched as eunuchs around you were taken down one by one, and your blood ran cold. You moved first, voluntarily surrendering your authority and offering up most of the silver you'd accumulated over the years. The new emperor appreciated your good sense and spared you, but banished you to tend an abandoned courtyard behind Jingshan Hill. From a second-rank grand eunuch to an old man sweeping a courtyard, the fall took a long time to accept. But you told yourself, at least you're alive. How many eunuchs ranked higher than you had lost their heads? At 50, you were finally released from the palace. By custom, elderly eunuchs could leave to spend their remaining years outside. With the little silver you'd saved, you moved to a small temple on the western outskirts of Beijing. The temple housed a dozen old eunuchs, just like you. You looked after each other, growing vegetables and cooking together. Outsiders called it the eunuch temple. Passers-by crossed to the other side of the road, thinking it unlucky. Your godson visited sometimes, bringing food and supplies. He eventually passed the provincial exams and became a minor official. He called you father, and the warmth that word brought was real, even though you knew you could never have children of your own. In the winter of your 62nd year, you passed away quietly in the temple's small courtyard. In this life, you went from a starving farm boy into the deepest whirlpool of power within the Forbidden City and were spat back out. You gazed upon the emperor's dragon countenance, handled untold riches, and tasted the bitterness of falling from the clouds. But your deepest regret was not the loss of power. It was what you lost at 8 years old, in Chun One-Cut's room, the wholeness of yourself. This has been your life simulation, the life of a Qing Dynasty eunuch.